Hi, welcome everybody. We will call the meeting to order. My name is Dara Brady. I'm the vice chair, so you're going to have to pardon me. I've never actually had to be the chair before, so I will indubitably make some errors of judgment, or maybe of something else. But anyway, welcome to the regular meeting of the Landmarks and Historic Preservation Commission, City of Oneonta. Roll call. Bill Pino is absent. I am here. Bob?
Present.
Sarah?
Here.
Evanson? Sherilyn Lacy?
Here.
Helen Reeves is absent. And Don Madison?
Here.
Thank you. Okay, so now we need to move on to the approval of the minutes for December 9th and February 13th. Did anyone have any changes to make to the minutes?
So the December 9 minutes are back on your agenda because there have been questions.
Right. In fact, did we have a quorum for that meeting? Was that the one that we actually didn't have a, no, 1, 2, 3, no, we had a quorum.
I think this is the third time it's come up. Maybe.
How about for the minutes for February 13th, last month's meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes for both the December 9th and February 13th meetings as,
Excuse me, could we have them as two different, because I'll need to abstain from February 9th.
because you weren't here.
And I should abstain from December because I wasn't on the commission yet.
So that
You
means that
wish to table them until the next meeting?
Yeah,
Because
because
both will fail.
Okay, so we will table the approval of the meeting minutes for December and February until next week.
Unless Bill shows up.
What?
Maybe Bill will show up.
if Bill comes in, we could.
Oh, then we can do it, okay. Okay, petitioners and correspondence. Who do we have first? Do we have a sign-in sheet for petitioners or no? So who would like to petition first for their project?
We are all representative of 183 Main.
Okay, so you're all here for the
We're just rolling dates.
Greater Oneonta Historic Society. Okay, awesome, thank you. Well, why don't you go ahead?
Well,
We're old business, right?
Say what?
We're an old business.
We're old business, new business is 190 Main.
Oh, okay, thank you very much for correcting that. Okay, 190 Main, new business, who's that?
Not here.
Well, there you go, that's why I was
All right.
confused.
You're doing a great job so far.
I've managed to scare away all new business. Brilliant, okay. We will table new business until maybe they will show up later and take care of them later. How about 183 Main, Greater Oneonta Historical Society window replacement project, right?
sure. Are you doing new business window webinar? Is that,
No, that
We'll
was
pass on that
volunteer
for
to
now.
represent it.
okay, great. Okay, so yes, we are here for the Greater Oneonta Historical Society to talk about the proposal that we submitted last month in February, as you remember seeing me at the last meeting.
Right?
Which was tabled to this meeting. So I know that you all already have a kind of general backdrop of, our proposal, and, we have already submitted all of our paperwork to you. I did just send around an updated estimate that we've received. We have investigated, we're still aiming for a replacement, but instead of the original 1/1 windows that we had proposed, we have looked into 2/2 windows, which will look much more similar to the 2/2s that are on the third floor currently. So while we are still petitioning for replacement of those windows, they will be more similar in look and feel to the historic windows that are currently in place.
Okay.
I do have a letter that I wish to read, but prior to that, I have my crew here, so we're just gonna give you a little bit more detail on the condition of the windows. This is Dan Baker behind me here. He's our contractor. He actually pulled off one of our sashes and brought it with us, so that you could see an example of that. And then I'm just gonna briefly turn it over to Gary Wickham, who is our chair of our building committee.
And has a big old sash waiting.
Yes.
See, you knew what that was.
I know what
Very-
that is. I grew up in an
Very
eighteen fifties
impressive.
townhouse in New York.
Yeah, and the only thing I'm gonna say about these sash weights is there's a set of them obviously for each window.
There's, excuse me?
There's a set of them for
Right.
each window.
Right.
And if we don't eliminate the sash weights, that's an area that we cannot insulate. Because they'll have to remain free in there, obviously, to operate the windows. I'd do anything to avoid that. The rest of the commentary probably is gonna come from Dan, who brought the sash with him, so you get an idea how bad these windows are. And keep in mind, this building was built 160 years ago. And, you know, none of us, including you, were alive to know what that building looked like at that point in time. Most of the renovations that we've done so far take it back to about 1920. And that's with the Lascaris tiles in front and the way the doors are set up. And obviously we tried to, in some places, to save the tile from Lascaris's. We worked very hard to have this project look like it should. You know, I don't think you would suggest that we should keep the old wiring. I don't think you should suggest that we would keep the old plumbing because it's
No, and
there's been
then,
improvements over the years. This has been a struggle, this renovation. And, we had 3 major projects to do, over the last couple of years. The tile work was one of them, the renovation of the first floor, the brickwork on the outside, we spent $185,000 on the brickwork to make this place look like it's supposed to look. Over the years, we've replaced, windows on the second floor with storm windows which don't operate, and the reason for that is obviously we have collections in there, and the collections have to be maintained at a certain temperature, so, you know, the windows don't open, we don't want them to open. Occasionally somebody opens one with a beer bottle from across the street, but that's, you know, that does happen.
unfortunate.
Yeah. So we would appeal to your good nature to take a look at what we want to replace these with, which look exactly like what's coming out of there, they just aren't the same. And while I appreciate the commission's plan to keep things as original as you possibly can, this is a hardship.
I'd like to hear from the contractor, and if you could show us your sash, and
Sure.
sort of talk about what the issues are. That certainly doesn't look like an original sash, back to 1860s or something.
Oh, it is.
It is?
Oh, yeah. This is the window that was in there originally. It's been there for however long that building's
They
been there.
didn't make them like that back in the 1860s.
Oh, yes, they did.
No, they didn't.
Okay.
I was a historic architect for 35
All right,
years.
well,
It's wood.
it's my opinion that it's
Okay.
one of the original windows, but that's okay. So it's a 2-pane over 2. There's a double hung window and that one identical to it above. As Gary said, there's counterweights that offset the weight of the window and make it go up and down. And in that, there's a cavity that's approximately 3 inches deep and 4 inches wide on each side to accommodate the weights and the ropes. And that cavity is, like Gary said, can't be insulated,
Right.
so the windows can operate the way they were intended to operate. There's no gaskets or weather stripping on these windows, there never was. They just ride up and down in wooden slots, and the ropes and weights keep them going up and down. They're obviously single pane windows, uninsulated glass, and frost appears on them because they're uninsulated. So in the 3rd floor of the building, we're upgrading electrical and the plumbing, we're adding heat and air conditioning, we're insulating the perimeter walls that were never insulated before, we're insulating the attic space, and to do all that work and spend all that money, and then have a window that doesn't perform well, drafty, they make noise when the wind blows. It's my opinion that the new sashes will look identical to these unless you were right in front of them. And then the only difference would be the finish on them and the new modern gaskets that keep the weather out and the heat and air conditioning in. So, and there's also you can't insulate around them due to the weights. So, and on the windows that are going in there are Andersen windows. They're very high quality. Everyone's heard of them. And they're replacement style windows. So from the outside of the building, when you look at the windows, they will look exactly as they do today. The brick moldings will remain, all the trim on the bottom of the window, on the sill, on the sides, on the top, on the exterior, all stays there. It's wooden trim, it'll be painted, caulked, finished, and then the new window unit goes inside of those perimeters. So we're not changing every bit of the look. We're only changing the operational parts of the window. And on the inside, we preserved the ornate trims that are on half of the windows because they were very ornate and fancy trims. I think Marcy has some pictures she could show you of that. So those trims are going back. So on the inside of the windows in the front room, the main street room, will have the same trim on the interior. So that won't change. And the trim on the other portion of the windows on the interior will be renewed because it was just a plain 1x6 trim. And it wasn't worth time and effort to preserve it because it's nominal wood that you just buy and put back.
So are you going to replace that with trim that matches the original trim?
Yes,
or?
yeah, but it's very basic trim on the back side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the front half of the building had very ornate, in the ballroom area, had very ornate trims that we're gonna reuse.
Okay.
The back trim was just a plain Jane trim we did not preserve that because we're just gonna replace it with new. So that's my story, and if anyone has any questions, I'd give it a try to answer.
Dara, I'll just mention really quickly as well, this is what all of our windows look like. So per your comment that they may not be original to 1865, that could possibly be the case. As Jerry pointed out, none of us were alive in 1865. I haven't been able to investigate closely enough any photos of the building from 1865 to be able to say that these are the exact windows, but all of the 11 windows on our third floor look just like this.
Thank you.
Yep.
And they all have reasonably old glass or replacement glass, or it looks pretty.
We haven't replaced the glass,
Yeah.
so as you can see, some of them are broken.
Right.
Some of them are taped shut right now, but no, we have not replaced any glass, at least to my knowledge.
As a member of the Board of Trustees, I need to recuse myself from discussion and voting. But I think it might be okay because of my 20-plus year history with the Historical Society to respond to that
speak to the
point
history
about
of
the
that.
glass.
Mm-hmm.
We have a program going back to when Sally Mullen, who preceded me as president of the Historical Society, and had a program called Windows on the Past, where people could sponsor a window for $500, and there were window panes that were shattered or broken, cracked, that were replaced as part of that program. I don't know if remembering how many there were, but there were some. It was like quiet.
I should also mention, at least in regards to the history of the building too, and I don't know if you have the original photos of the exterior that I submitted last. So if you look at those carefully, you can see too on our second floor that 7 of those 11 windows, 12 technically, but one is the elevator. But 7 of those 11 windows were also replaced to 1/1. So those are modern windows, and 5 of the 2/2s remain on the second floor.
Thank
Do you,
Marcy.
do you have proof that they were replaced?
On the second
On the
floor?
second floor?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
We can
Yeah.
talk to the contractor if that's.
Didn't happen that long ago.
Oh, okay.
What was that, Bob,
When did we do that?
2015?
Yeah.
Right around then.
Yeah.
Right around 2015.
10 years or less.
And primarily that was for for collections purposes on our second floor. Because we do store and house our collection on that floor, it's very important that those windows were updated for efficiency and sustainability to be able to preserve our collection.
What
We
were they
did
were-
replace all of those windows, only the ones that needed replacement at that time, and then all of them have permanent shut-in storms because we don't need to open and, well, actually, we can't open and close those windows on our second floor in order to make sure that nothing is being exposed to our collection.
And what
Did
were
you
they
insulate on the
replaced
second
with?
floor?
They're not insulated, they're just stormed. They're stormed in,
Interior store?
yeah.
Yes.
And what were they replaced with?
Just those 1/1s that you can see in the photo. Any photo, any picture of a window that you see on the second floor that's a 1/1 is a replacement window.
Replacement, right. And so then the 2/2s are original on the second floor?
Yeah.
So I
Well,
see
as
one-
original as Dara
Yeah.
suggested, possibly not back to 1865, but whenever the 2/2 windows were installed. And we don't know the history of the building enough to be able to accurately say what year they were installed. We assumed that they were the natural windows from 1865.
You don't think it was 1865?
Oh, no, just the sash didn't look quite heavy enough to be that old, but 2/2 is certainly more historic because they just didn't make glass in giant panes back
Yeah.
in the 1860s.
I think it's very possible that they're original.
Yeah, maybe so.
More,
That
in
was
fact,
our
more
original
than likely,
assumption,
yeah,
but-
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I will say, I'm really encouraged by the condition of that window. Like,
Yeah.
that's an excellent condition.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of ways to address those concerns that you have. Interior storms would solve window rattling and air penetration. There are a lot of ways to weather strip, historic windows. Like that window, it needs some glazing and a new piece of glass, and boom, you're ready to go. So.
Wouldn't an interior storm also be considered ahistorical?
No, it's
Yeah.
actually a recommendation of the Secretary of Interior
Yeah.
Standards. They'd much prefer you to preserve the existing windows and install interior storms. That's actually their,
The
Interior
interior-
or
the
exterior.
interior
or exterior, but
storm-
Or
interior
exterior.
is above
Yeah.
exterior because it
Yeah.
doesn't change the look of the
But the
building from the
interior storm
exterior.
itself is ahistorical in nature.
Right, so our job as the board is to, as best we can, follow the Secretary of the Interior standards for historic preservation, for the exterior. So interior storms are a great solution for our commission because it doesn't affect the, view from the outside, and it solves kind of all of these issues.
Where does the commission stand on energy use?
So data shows that restored historic windows are as energy efficient as modern replacement windows, if not better.
Well, I would disagree with that, and I also disagree with the fact that you've got a channel on each side where these sash-ways have to hang that can't be insulated.
So, I guess my question is, have you spoken with historic window restorationists about some of these concerns?
Sir.
I'll do that.
It is very well documented and researched, that historic, restoration of windows ends up being equally energy efficient as new windows and way more cost effective.
You still haven't solved the problem of the channels. though.
Right, so typically, one of the misnomers is that when it comes to energy efficiency, it doesn't go out as much as it goes up. So you can save that money that you're saving by not buying new windows and actually put it into insulating your crawl space or cock loft and create a higher energy efficiency and more efficient building by doing that.
Go ahead.
Well, if we've shown that it will look the same exterior.
Well,
isn't
actually,
that-
it's not true. Old windows, the glass is what's called an amorphic material. It is not actually a solid or a liquid. It's between those, and it moves over time. And when you have an 1865 window, it gets all those old ripples in it because it's actually moving very slowly over time. But no, it makes a really big difference. And the Secretary of Interior Standards takes that very seriously because if you were to replace all the windows on Mount Vernon with brand new, beautifully made windows today, it would look very different from what it looks like now. And you would perceive the difference, and you can actually see it when you drive by. At 60 miles an hour, you can see the difference. difference.
But
Would you notice our second floor windows? What
Yeah,
ones?
you can tell the difference.
Are you tall enough to see the third floor?
It's
I don't think
the fact that the reflections come back are all distorted and wavy, and that's how you know it's old glass.
We're
Well-
not gonna be able to find old glass that'll replace the
No.
broken panes.
Oh, you,
Yeah.
actually, you probably could, if you talk to a window restoration company, they have stockpiles of old glass.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, as treasurer, former treasurer, now president of the Greater Oneonta Historical Society Board of Trustees, the cost to do this would probably preclude us from actually potentially proceeding without major fundraising and,
It's,
I
it's
mean, I know that's not.
But have
Very-
you gotten
very
real
well
window
researched.
restoration guys to give you a quote?
We've had multiple contractors come and look at our windows, and every single one of them has suggested replacement over repair.
So I guess to kind of go back to.
what we're asking is for
Yeah.
window restoration
Yeah.
specialists. And it's actually not just our opinion, it's very well documented that restoring windows is more cost effective than buying new ones, especially over 30 years. So the material that these windows are made out of is, you can't buy anymore, okay? The trees that these were made out of, because of the resin content, last much longer. And the Anderson 400 windows have approximately maybe a 30-year lifespan, right? And then so you're gonna have to
Our
replace.
estimate says they have a lifetime warranty, but can you speak to that, Jan?
Anderson windows have a warranty
Yeah.
that carries over for owners in many decades.
Many decades, right? So, approximately a 30-year lifespan. So, not only are they more expensive initially, but you're gonna have to redo it again in 30 years, and it's a whole nother cost.
So let me, so let me ask you this, if we,
And
if
this is
we-
not just my opinion,
Well,
it's well established that restoring windows is much more cost effective than replacing them.
can you explain that? I mean, how do you think that's cost effective? If it costs
It doesn't
$20,000 more.
It doesn't.
to restore it?
It doesn't.
I would disagree.
Documentation of that?
Do you have documentation of that?
Do you have?
Do you?
I do, yeah, actually, it's on our website.
well,
Yes, but we're getting quotes and, you know, it's,
Have you talked to a window restoration specialist?
Can you recommend any?
Absolutely.
Yes,
No.
absolutely.
Please do.
We
Yeah,
can't.
we can't.
So
Well-
we as a commission cannot recommend individual
That's a bad
contractors.
word, yes.
Yeah.
However, I would, I know that there's someone in Sydney, Cherry Valley, in
Cooperstown.
Delhi, Cooperstown. So if you Google that, or an even better option would be to reach out to the Preservation League of New York State, because they can recommend contractors. And I know you've been in contact with the SHPO about this, so they could also kind of direct you to preservation nonprofits that could help.
So let me ask this, if we were to take the route, because as it sounds, this is what your determination is going to be. So if we were to take the route of historical restoration of our windows, what is the purview that you then have over how we restore those windows? So if we just say we're gonna restore them, then we can leave it up to a restorationist to restore them however they best see fit, and we would defer to them. And they don't need to defer to you, that's outside of your purview, correct?
I think our motion.
Like, what authority do you have over the restoration process of our windows?
Well, I think it would depend on the motion we make, and it would likely be something like restored to as they look.
So the restoration process is also something that you have authority over in the city of Oneonta in historic buildings?
To the extent that it affects the look from the exterior, we have authority over the exterior of the building. So, you know, if you decided to restore them by just completely covering them up with plywood, that would not be acceptable. But I think if you've got a reputable restoration to give you, and then presented that to us, you know.
And I think we would likely, in the event that a motion was made, it would be something like in kind, which is then the assumption that you're using like material, that you are, anything that has to be replaced with new material matches the historic, nature, so.
And we're
But that's
also
all
very cognizant
speculative.
that there are new materials out there that help for restoration, as in epoxy resins and epoxy fillers for rotted windowsills, but, you know, I grew up in an 1856 house, and honestly, we never had to restore the windows because they were just lasted forever, but, I did have to restore some windows in an 1890s house and used a lot of epoxy resin and filler, and that's acceptable.
Okay, so hypothetically, theoretically, let's say that historic window restoration is out of our budget and we decide not to do it. Would you prefer then that we make no changes to our windows and we leave them broken and looking like
Well,
that?
that's a code violation. So that's where the code would come in. So the code would require that window be.
So the code would require that we
Just
would
for
have to
broken
replace the
windows.
windows, but then the
Broken.
landmarks commission determines that we have to replace them
Well,
with
replace the
historical
glazing, not
restoration.
necessarily the windows.
Replace the paint.
Can we return to the cost of this? You seem to think that it's gonna cost less money to restore those windows than it is to buy those Anderson 400 series. Is that your suggestion?
So I assume you're probably spending, is it maybe $500 to $1,000 per window?
It's much more than that.
Oh,
Much more than that per window, yeah.
And restoration is much more than that.
I guess
So-
we'd like to see that.
Well, let me ask
Well,
you
that's
this.
outside of your purview. We're not
Yeah.
required to show
Okay.
you our estimates and numbers for our windows. That's
Okay.
just
Our
not- we're
website
not
also
required to do
has
that.
a directory on the Window Preservation Alliance, has a directory for local restorers for windows. So you can certainly do a search on that website to get some companies locally.
So if this comes in much higher than what our estimate is for replacing windows, is there a threshold there that you say, you're right, go get the Anderson? Or does it matter? If it costs twice as much to restore a window, are you gonna say, too bad?
We're not ready to speculate on something
So
like
they'd
that.
be up to code, all we would have to do is replace the broken window
Yeah.
panes. But they just ask me
Put storm windows in, on the interior, the exterior
if we want to.
has to look like that, the interior.
You don't care about that?
No, don't care about the interior. And
So-
I
I mean, well, we do,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
outside of our purview.
But I totally understand your issue with keeping the space inside to meet conservation standards. I was a historic architect that did museums for a living, and so I understand the need to have a really solid exterior wall to maintain your 50% humidity and 62 to 64%, you know, temperatures if that's what you're going for, depending on what your collection is. But I think you can get that with restored windows in storms, and I think there's ways of insulating that pocket for that. I mean, if the window, for one thing, if you're putting in interior storms, we can get rid of the pocket and get rid of that. We don't care about
But they're
that.
historic.
We don't care about that. We care about the exterior of the building, which is the Greater Oneonta Historical Society. We don't want to see it, you know.
I think that's a very good point, though. Kind of just a side note, your note about them being historic. I think it would be very cool and interesting and exciting to have that space historically accurate.
And
I
show
think
it like with a
and show it
window,
like it
yeah.
should be shown. I think that takes it to a whole nother level of greatness.
But putting storm windows over, wouldn't that change the look of it from the outside as well? You're talking about the way historic panes look, wouldn't you, if you put a storm window on the
They're pretty much
inside?
invisible.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're very
Really
thin framed.
They have really thin aluminum frames that sort of custom fit to and they fit to weird openings, so your windows can be racked and they still will fit.
It's difficult to wash.
Yeah,
That's true.
they do pop out though, so that they can be removed. And some new nicer newer ones are double hung or single hung,
Yeah,
so
I've
you
seen
can
them.
use the windows.
I've seen them, and to me, the best solution is to replace the window. That's me. I'm not a historic architect, although a lot of people think I'm old enough to remember when the building was built.
Well, and I get that is absolutely sort of the simplest way to approach this project, and you know what you're gonna get. You can sort of get a guarantee from Anderson for 30 years, and they'll tell you what the R value is and what you'll save on the heating and everything else. And it's certainly, a
Also
more
a
known
nonprofit
proposition
organization,
than
yeah.
restoring windows.
And cost is certainly a huge factor.
That's for us, it is, I mean.
You know, you can pass a hat only
But if you're
40
spending
times.
over $1,000 per window now, is that what you just said, 500 to 1,000? Then I can't believe you can't find a window restoration guy that can't do that.
What if we can't? What if we can't find a window, what if we can't do that? Is there a threshold where you would say?
Well, there's
not
the
gonna do
economic
it?
hardship issue, right?
Well, that would be us.
I mean, that's one of the ways that you can, you know,
Show
Yeah.
an economic hardship.
yeah.
But I just wanna, I mean, you should keep in mind that any funding through New York State requires SHPO approval. So if SHPO is denied the removal of these windows, that you would lose any funding through New York State.
Has SHPO denied it?
They have suggested, they've not denied, they've suggested restoration.
And let me just say, the reason they've suggested that is for the same thing, echoing the same reasons we're suggesting
And we'll be
it.
appealing them as well. I have a letter that I would like to read, if you would be so kind as to entertain me. It's a little long, so I apologize for the length, but we're gonna read it anyway. This has been submitted to Carrie as correspondence as well. Dear Commissioners, the Greater Oneonta Historical Society submits its correspondence to the City of Oneonta's Landmarks and Historic Preservation Commission, herein referred to as the Commission, regarding the replacement of GOHS's third floor windows. We respectfully disagree with the Landmarks Commission's determination that GOHS should seek to repair and restore versus replace the 11 windows on the third floor of the Oneonta History Center at 183 Main Street. GOHS's building at 183 Main was added to the National Historic Register in 2003 as part of City of Oneonta's historic downtown. When historic sites and landmarks are added to the National Register, a site's features are evaluated on several criteria: that the site is connected to important events or people, presents distinctive aesthetic characteristics, or has the potential to yield important information about the past. These same qualifications are used by the Commission when recommending sites to be considered for individual landmark status. Sites which meet these criteria are to be preserved for the common good. However, preservation of a site designated under these criteria does not preclude the possibility of alteration. To give the obvious example, historic sites can still be held liable under the Americans with Disabilities Act if they fail to make their properties accessible to the public. Those alterations cannot be done without purpose, of course. And to use the terminology of the National Park Service, those, quote, character-defining features which make a property significant must be preserved. This commission ostensibly follows a similar rule. Per 160.12b of the City Code, the commission will issue a certificate of appropriateness, quote, only if it determines that the proposed work will not have a substantial adverse effect on the aesthetic, historical, or architectural significance and value of the individual landmark, end quote. Further, to quote the National Park Service Preservation Brief 32 on accessibility, secondary spaces and finishes and features that may be less important to the historic character should also be identified. These may generally be altered without jeopardizing the historical significance of a property. Non-significant spaces, secondary pathways, later additions, previously altered areas, utilitarian spaces, and service areas can usually be modified without threatening or destroying a property's historical significance. The replacement of GOHS's third floor windows present a similar case. This is a matter of making minor alterations to a historic property in the interest of the public good. In the case of GOHS's exterior windows, our organization seeks further explanation and justification from the Commission as to how or why the preservation of the third floor windows can be considered, quote, character defining in any meaningful sense. In what ways would replacement windows have a, quote, substantial adverse effect on our property? The windows of 183 Main are a feature which have already been altered in the past on at least 2 different occasions. The 7 1/1 replacement windows currently on the building's second floor would not have yet been available when the property was first constructed in the 1850s and completed in the 1860s. These windows display 20th century irregular renovation over the years to even cursory inspection, with some 1/1s and some 2/2s. More importantly, the current exterior 2/2 windows on the third floor are far from character defining. The second and third floor windows are, without question, secondary to the historical significance of the building. Neither the significance of the building's age as the oldest brick building still standing on Main Street, nor its significance as a site of a series of local businesses are hindered by the installation of slightly different windows when those windows have already been replaced multiple times in the building's history. Additionally, there's the question of the intended function of the third floor space. We are not renovating a space for the casual use or home rental. We intend to use the space to, quote, foster public knowledge, understanding, and appreciation in the beauty and character of the city of Oneonta and in the accomplishments of its past, the very same purpose this commission was established to serve. GUHS stands for preservation, yes, but preservation for a purpose, to tell the diverse stories which make up Oneonta's past. What stories can we share with the old, non-original windows that we couldn't tell with newer, more efficient windows better suited to the third floor's intended purpose? And finally, while the proposed replacement of our third floor windows does represent an alteration of the building from its current form, they are not a substantially greater change or more noticeable for our visitors or the public than restoration with secondary storm windows would be. As the third floor is being renovated to serve as a space for exhibits, history lectures, and programs and other events, the internal integrity of appearance is just as important for our purposes as the external appearance. The Commission's proposed suggested addition of secondary storm windows would destroy the historical integrity of the interior space for even the casual visitor. There is a genuine need for historical property regulation, both in Oneonta and in the country at large. Too often, regulations are left without any method of enforcement, and we do not fault the Commission for trying to avoid that outcome. However, to apply the strictures of this Commission to Oneonta's historic properties at large will not merely inconvenience some property owners, but also incentivize the abandonment and degradation of properties by landlords and owners who do not wish to bother with fines, commission hearings, and the like. The Commission's interpretation of preservation might, in fact, accelerate the loss of historic properties in Oneonta, and indeed is already doing so. Anecdotally, we have already heard of one Oneonta landlord who's telling property owners to let their homes decay rather than spend the money to restore them properly. Is this, per the Commission's code-defined purpose, quote, protecting property values in the city of Oneonta, or, quote, promoting and encouraging continued private ownership and stewardship of historic structures? We would suggest it is not. Moreover, preventing the necessary replacement of our third floor windows is not only anathema to our shared mission to preserve our city's historic structures, but also sets a discouraging precedent that precludes and impedes historic home and building owners from the maintenance and preservation of those historic buildings. We must ask what kind of historic preservation this Commission intends to represent. The Commission seems to approve of altering the features of a historic property. After all, our intended window replacement is not changing the site any more than its recommendation of repairing and restoring the third floor windows and adding secondary storm windows, a feature which is likewise ahistorical in nature. But the Commission is insistent that its proposed ahistorical alterations, made at a considerable expense for a local nonprofit organization that is dedicated to publicizing Oneonta's history, are historical preservation, and the intended changes proposed by GUHS, which are being done to make the third floor a welcoming space for people interested in Oneonta's history, are destructive to Oneonta's aesthetic significance. This is not the vision of historic preservation that GUHS, its board of trustees, or the museum professionals and employees can in good conscience support. Nonetheless, GUHS has amended our original window replacement estimate to include 2/2 windows rather than the 1/1 replacements we originally submitted to the Commission. The 2/2 window replacements will maintain a more similar, consistent exterior look and feel to the windows currently in place than the 1/1 windows originally submitted. Thank you for your consideration in this matter.
So I take it that that's your appeal. That's great. Thank you for the nice letter. I would just like to see the data that you have to back up all of that. Shall we do, is there anything else? Any other questions?
What do you mean the data?
Well, I can't go line by line, especially without having that in front of me. But you referenced a lot of kind of situations in your letter, and how we are outside of our purview and so on and so forth. So I just like to see the data. For example, I believe, and this is just my opinion, what you just read to us made me count the windows for this building, and actually the majority of them are original. There's only a few that have been changed.
7 of them.
Out of how many?
11.
I would say, so there's 4 on the front that are original. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 that are original. So the majority are original.
I mean,
And in
And
bad
it-
shape.
Well, that's subjective, I suppose.
when we did the restoration of the Oneonta History Center, when we purchased the
You,
building in
you also
2000,
mentioned that it was going to be more expensive. So like I said, I'd like to see data to back that up.
Right, but we don't have to show those numbers.
You're absolutely right, and you know, we're entitled to say whatever we want to
So
it.
you're saying unless we give you the financial numbers for the differences between our estimates for restoration versus replacement, you're gonna deny our request?
No, that's not what I said at all. What I am saying is we want to be here to help you make right decisions. And we don't believe you're making the right decision. That's what I'm saying. We want to help you make the right decision, both cost effectively and from a historic preservation standpoint.
Well, it will cost us money to get the estimate. I mean, isn't it costing us more already for the adjusted 2/2?
Yes.
Yeah, so we've already
Increase our
increased
estimate
our,
to make them
that's
more
right.
accurate. to
There's
the
more
numbers that are
fundraising,
currently in.
more delays.
So I think kind of to speak to Bill's point, and to kind of answer some of the points that you brought up in that letter. So we do our best to follow the Secretary of the Interior standards on historic preservation. And they say that historic windows are character defining. So because you have a majority of original or early replacement windows to this building, they are character defining features of the building. So changing them in any way would in fact be changing the overall exterior character of this building, not subjectively, but based on the Secretary of the Interior standards. So I think that we are trying our best to steward this building, not just for right now, but for the long term. So we have windows here that have been in place for theoretically since 1865, and that window is in objectively excellent condition, minus needing a pane replaced. So that is, yes, and that is a real testament to the historic nature of these building materials, like Bill was bringing up. So I think that that's our struggle, is that we want to see these standards upheld. We are not trying to make a hardship for anyone. I think that anecdote you brought up about, you know, people gossiping about town, you know, saying, you know, just abandon your house, that's a really unfortunate attitude.
It is.
And it's not reflective of reality.
Also not one I wanna be very clear that we are espousing.
Yeah,
That's not.
Well,
Well, it's not. We are the Greater Oneonta Historical Society. We pride ourselves in historical preservation.
And that's why,
we are
to
not.
some extent, that's why it's even more important for you guys to do the right thing. If the Historical Society can't hew to the Secretary of Interior standards, which say very clearly right here on preservation brief for the repair of historic wood windows, this is self-evident for ornamental windows, but it can be equally true for warehouses or factories where the windows may be the most dominant visual element on an otherwise plain building, which absolutely is true for this facade, which we see every time you sit at the stoplight at the corner of Dietz and Main Street. It's a major facade, and it's a major part of the historic fabric.
And you think that the general public is looking up to our third floor windows and saying, wow, those are really beautiful historic windows?
No, I don't
Like,
think so.
do you actually think that people are doing that? Because they're not. They're looking at them and they're saying, wow, those look like trash.
Well, so that's why we're here, is because the general public doesn't actually pay attention to that stuff. But it's the people like us who actually hold on to the historic fabric of old places in the US.
And it is
We
the
don't-
peop-
we don't
and it is
need-
the people
what-
like us
pause,
that house
pause.
the collections of
we,
Oneonta's history
we don't
for
need
the
to
last 300
speculate
years.
as to what the public is going to recognize and what the public is not going to recognize, okay? That's just speculation, okay? Let's leave it at that.
Let me ask you a question, Dara, because you're a historic architect, you mentioned. And when Dan showed you that window, you think that window came with the original building?
I'm not sure. It looked,
You think
the
it's
top
been
rail
replaced?
looks awful thin to me, but that's just,
You think it's been replaced?
I don't know.
It was a
I
good
don't know,
guess on your
originally
part.
you said it.
Originally you said.
But if it was character defining and historic, wouldn't we know immediately if it was one of the
Yeah.
original windows or not?
So I have a degree in historic preservation, and I'm saying it's original.
You think it's your one?
I do.
Okay.
And I'm saying it's character defining,
Regardless.
even if it was replaced in 1880,
Yeah.
based on historic preservation best practices.
So if we get a restorative, somebody who can come in and give us an estimate to restore the windows, and it's significantly higher than replacement, we can plead a hardship and potentially have another appeal.
Potentially, I would say so. I'd have to look at the code to verify that.
Because I can tell you, as former treasurer and current president, that if it's significantly higher, this project is at a halt right now.
I guess what I would ask you is, first of all, not to speculate that it's going to be
Yeah.
significantly higher. Secondly, please do research on this topic. We have
You've
some
already given us the research.
we have some reference material on our website specific to Windows. You can Google search it if you want to. There is a ton of information out there for this very exact topic. Exactly what we are discussing here tonight, and I feel that I can tell you right now that generally speaking, windows are the biggest misnomer when it comes to renovations and restorations of buildings. There is a lot of misinformation out there, and there's probably no other element of a building where there is more misinformation than windows. So please do your research so that you will make the right decision.
When you say make the right decision, you mean make your decision.
Please don't put words in my mouth. I haven't put any words into your mouth.
Well, you certainly
With that
have,
note,
but that's beside the point. When
Miss-
you say make
Miss-
the right decision, that is also
You've made your
subjective,
point.
isn't it?
You've
But
made
we
your
do look
point.
into restoration.
we
You've,
Yes.
you've made your point. I think we can move on. Is there any other questions from the commission? Do we want to table this, deny this, or approve it to make a vote? Anybody?
Could you give us a chance to get some estimates?
Absolutely. We would love to table it if that's what you feel.
That would be great.
Okay.
And,
I'm speaking for you, sorry. No, that's fine.
and definitely, I mean, the Preservation League of New York State has a ton of resources. If you haven't reached out to them yet, absolutely do that. And I just want to reiterate that I think that we as a commission are trying to act in good faith in the best interests of the greater community overall, now and in the future. So we're not trying to be arbitrary, we're not trying to be confrontational, we're trying to do this in good faith, and we understand. So I don't want anyone to be, to think that that's not the case.
I understand, Sarah, and I apologize if I'm defensive, but I also need you guys to understand that we're a nonprofit organization that has been fundraising for this project for 10+ years. We have looked into multiple efforts of restoration. We do know that they cost more. Already, this is a huge financial hardship for us that we have painstakingly fundraised for, and it is for the public good. It is to open a community space for the public where we can offer them exhibits, educational programming, and all of our services are free and open to the public. We pride ourselves in offering those services to the community. So to have this be derailed for something like
You've made your point.
an
Thank you.
exterior window, it becomes very
Carrie, do we
difficult
need a second motion to table?
to be
Okay.
optimistic about it.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure, please.
It's unrelated to the windows. How long has the Landmark Commission been, how long have we had one?
22?
Years?
20 years?
22?
20 years, a year and a half.
I think it's been year and a half or 2 years.
Yeah, it's a year and a half.
It passed in
Yeah.
2022.
22,
but
yeah.
The commission wasn't
We
fully.
didn't get certified until.
No. They're not required to be certified through the National Park Service. We just didn't have enough, we didn't have a board meeting. So there was an ordinance without a commission. So it's.
Okay, and just one other question. Have you denied anyone else replacement windows?
There've been no
There's
other
been
applications
no
for
other-
replacement
yep.
windows. You're the first one.
Well, we like beta test cases.
Springboard windows
They're original, correct?
are original?
Yes.
Springboard?
No, their windows are not original. We talked to Rick Eastman about that. The only original windows that remain on the 4-block Springbrook apartments are the front Main Street windows. All of the
Yes.
all of the Broad Street side and all of the back windows are replaced.
Yep, so the way our commission works is, our purview is on the street side of the building, the main street side, if you will, not Main Street, the main street.
So then that wouldn't apply to
So,
Main
so
Street.
more
No, it
important.
would apply.
No, it would.
Wait, let me stop this. I wanna stop this right now.
Yeah.
I'm the code officer. At the time when they applied for a building permit, this commission did not exist. So at that point, Springbrook could have torn out every window in their building and thrown it in a dumpster, because this commission did not exist. The building permit was issued prior to this commission's existence, which means they did not have to comply with this process. Okay?
Now, question, so, but they did on Main Street, where
On
those
the Main Street
windows.
side, SHPO required them to keep those windows as part of their funding package.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Right, so it's very similar to this situation.
Yeah,
So
well,
if you were
I-
receiving state
It-
funding.
The issue with your building is it's a corner lot, right? So it has two sides where it's.
But it's not the Main Street side. Deed
I
Street
didn't
is
really
not.
mean Main Street, I meant the main,
The prior.
It's a very
Viewpoint.
visible
they call it the,
traffic side.
Right.
Yeah,
the right of way, or,
the right of way, right. So Dietz and Main Street are the right of way for your.
yeah.
Thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Let me please just reiterate, we want to help you make the right decision, okay?
Yeah, shout for the difference. Can we fundraise?
So we need a motion to table this?
Yes.
Do we need a motion? Yeah.
Do you want me?
I will make a motion that we table this application until you come back with more information.
Vis-a-vis restoration possibilities.
Or, yeah,
Well, restoration versus replacement,
Correct.
yeah.
numbers.
Right.
Now,
Well, no,
They can't.
I think that we would like to see.
They can require that, actually.
No.
To show
Yeah.
hardship, you're required to provide dollars and cents, just like on a zoning application.
it's-
So, for example, like if you wanna get a zoning variance and you're saying that I have a financial hardship, you're required to bring in financial statements showing that you do have a significant financial hardship.
So would
This-
that appeal be for replacement due to hardship?
Yep, so if you say you have a financial hardship, you would have to bring in dollars and cents, bid for bids, how much money it costs, what the difference in cost is.
Well, we
It's-
raise
that's part of the
some on
hardship.
what we have,
we can
yeah.
do that.
Our restricted funds. One.
So do I have a motion?
I made that motion.
Second by
I'll second.
Sharon?
All in favor?
Let's just go individually. Sarah?
Aye.
Sherilyn? Dara?
Aye.
Aye.
Recuse.
Well, thank you for
Well,
your time.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And audience.
And you're now in control again.
Thank you. Have we gone over?
We did not do new business,
Oh, we didn't, okay.
because they're not here.
So we, 190 isn't here.
We can
Take care,
still-
thank you.
Thank you, thanks for all showing up.
We can still vote on 190's application without a representative though, can't we?
What is
I don't
it?
see why not.
I mean, we have their application
Yeah.
package. I mean, can't we?
Yeah, I'd say so. I've reviewed it already.
We
and-
also, we didn't approve any of the minutes without you because there were too many people who weren't here to have a.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so let's just start. We've done
Yeah,
roll
we'll start,
call?
we'll start from scratch.
We've done roll call?
Yeah.
All right,
Although
so,
we should update it to include you now.
I think Carrie.
Okay.
So, just so you're aware, Doug just let me know that the applicant for 190 Main does not work for the finance board.
Does that affect the application, like, when I wouldn't?
Works for the company.
But just so you're aware.
So Austin Plows is no longer
That's
there?
what he's indicated, yes.
So are they getting another sign company? Because that was a sign company.
That I don't know.
It's the same sign company, they just have a different person.
So we can still vote on it even though that
They're not
person's.
here, right?
I mean, I don't see why not.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to, so we'll show the meeting that, an asterisk that I showed up late. All right. We'll do approval of minutes. So we have to do December's and February's. There was a discussion, Bob, last month about December's minutes, and none of us could recall or decide on which, what we were actually approving.
Well, the minutes that I sent out and drafted, there were 2 or 3 aberrations, I had accidentally written Chair Brady instead of Chair Flamel. And I don't remember what the other one was, but it was a similar kind of thing. And so those were corrected. But then the second time it came up, I believe there wasn't a quorum, so now it's coming up again.
So what month was that?
December.
That was December's meeting. Okay. Does that
So
make,
my question is, so was Helen Reese here in December? Because I thought that was the issue, that there wasn't a quorum in December.
Well, maybe it was, yeah, I don't know.
I think the concern was that we did or did not have a quorum.
Yeah, and that's why they weren't really supposed to be minutes, because we didn't have a quorum.
Yeah, it was good point, it's the October minutes, were they passed?
Yeah.
So the problem is that we approved the draft minutes of October in December, but we're not sure that we actually had a quorum in December.
so the question was, did we even have a meeting in December, even though we have,
Right.
I don't think you did, because I don't think Helen Reese was here, she was already down in Florida. and
she
I
was definitely not here, however, she is listed as
Yes.
present.
Do we have her saying anything during the meeting?
No, she wasn't here, she's in Florida by that time. I mean, my recollection from last meeting was that the issue was.
Wait a second, under SHPO, Commissioner Reese mentioned that Springbrook used such tax credits for the Ford on Main. Commissioner Evanson doubted that anyone at SHPO could chair such a session. So there is a mention of Commissioner Reese mentioning that Springbrook used tax credits.
So did she not leave yet? It was like right before she left? Okay, so that would say we'd have a quorum. Does that make sense to everybody?
Oh, yeah, because the October
I mean, unless that statement there in the paragraph about SHPO program is incorrectly identifying the person who spoke about Springbrook and tax credits.
Yeah, I was getting October mixed up with December, so.
I have notes from our last meeting that there was no quorum for December.
But were you thinking that Helen wasn't there?
That's what we all agreed last time, but I don't know. Just really.
I can't speak to anything about
No,
the December
you're-
meeting except for I see in these
Yes,
notes
right.
here
Yeah,
that
yeah.
says Commissioner Reese spoke.
I mean,
So I think we're good to go ahead to approve the minutes
Go for it.
as a meeting.
yeah, I don't think Bob would have hallucinated Helen talking
No.
during the meeting.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't remember what well, I wasn't here, so I don't know what the issues were.
Well, I think that was it.
After the fact, yeah.
So, okay. Are we good with that? Can we approve the minutes for December?
I make a motion that we approve the draft minutes of the December 9th, 2024 meeting
I'll
as
second.
presented.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Recuse.
All, there you go. Very good. All opposed, or any opposed? None. So that takes us to February's, which I have here. Does anybody see any corrections for February?
We did so much with seeker.
Yes.
Oh, did
Very busy
we?
meetings because of
Okay, we
secret.
still got it, seeker. Which, well, side note, let's focus on this.
I don't see any corrections, so I would make a motion that we accept the February 2025 minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
All right, seconded by Sherilyn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstained. Bob's abstained. So unanimous, except for Bob. That passes. That takes us to, there's no petitioners, no correspondence, I don't believe.
Well, there's the 190 Main. Oh, right, never mind.
They wanted to all go under the application. So any petitioners that were here or
Yeah.
correspondence they wanted tied to their application.
Okay, all right. That takes us to new business and the COA for 190 Main Street, which is the window sticker. I've reviewed it. Does anybody need any time to review that?
So just, can we talk about it a little bit? I just have
Yeah,
some-
absolutely.
So we have to make our motion
We have to make our
about-
seeker.
Do I have to I make a motion that the city's Landmarks and Historic Preservation Commission will serve as lead agency for the purpose of this review?
Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor of the seeker?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, so now we can talk about it, I guess.
So from,
Don't we have to do the secret part, actually, the secret?
Didn't we just do the seeker?
No, there's
You
a
declared
second.
yourself lead agency,
It's
so.
a certificate
Okay.
of appropriateness.
Good, good,
So
good.
now you would determine that it's a type 2 action receipt.
Yes.
Okay.
Somebody needs to make a motion to that.
so
That's
I
Sorry, I apologize.
will make a motion that we declare this a type 2 action under seeker because it is, not any sort of new construction. It is repair, it's maintenance or repair with no substantial changes in an existing structure.
I
Changing
second.
one sign for another.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So just to
Any
clarify.
opposed?
Oh.
Unanimous.
I just wanna clarify. It's essentially a decal on glass and an existing facade and then a new blade sign.
It's also a new.
There's also a new sign above the doors, the
Right.
Ford on Main, if you look
But-
at this picture here.
But is that not on an existing, like a storefront? Is that not, is the material not there? Is there going to be a sign covering brick there, I guess is my question? Or is it just
So
the
the Ford on Main
facade?
sign is on it's on an old signboard.
Okay.
It's on where the original sign location.
So they're not installing anything, any new built materials other than this blade sign?
And
What?
letters.
Yeah,
Ford on
quarter
Main.
inch aluminum composite letters.
Yep. So they're metal letters that say Ford on Main, and then there's a blade sign that extends off. And then there's some vinyl, like, it's supposed to look like painted glass, but it's like a sticker decal kind of thing.
So if you look on that picture, I'm not sure what page this is. This one, I don't see a page number.
Yeah.
You'll see a picture all the way over to the right with that blade sticking out, kinda near that green awning. If you look really closely, there's that blade that sticks out.
You see it?
Yeah. I see.
Okay. And so
See it?
the aluminum composite letters, how will they be applied to the black space above the door and window?
I think it's just like some sort of trap system that will be screwed into the wood, just like the original sign.
And do you know, is the wood that's there, I'm assuming it's been replaced relatively recently due to decay but as a storefront?
Yeah, so those storefronts were all, Springbrook, when they did the renovation, did in place, like all the base kind of, pieces.
That's all
were all
they
lead.
did. Yeah,
They
I think
used
it's all, yeah.
they used like a composite material because the wood had all rotted. They went through and patched and filled and epoxied and bondo, so that was all painted.
Is it restored wood or is this all brand new wood?
It's pretty much
But
brand
it's
new, I
mixed.
think, yeah.
It's a mix of stuff. So some of it's original, some of it's not, some of it's composite, some of it's not. They just replaced everything in kind where it needed to be. I don't know if you'd ever been into the latte lounge. You used to be able to like dig through to the outside.
Yeah.
The wood was so rotted. If you sat by like the windows. So they basically went through and like kind of just in kind
So it's this one right here.
patched
Yeah.
It looks,
and then painted.
It looks non-historic. It's hard to tell.
Bob, any questions?
I have no questions.
No question?
I have
Carolyn?
No problems.
It doesn't seem like any of these materials could cause decay of historic features, so.
Anything else, sir?
I have no concerns.
Can I make a motion?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I make a motion that we approve the certificate of appropriateness.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
So we need new business, old business, minutes, training.
Wait, did we talk about board vacancy?
Well, wait, we're still in new business, window
Oh,
webinar?
okay, I thought we moved on.
Yes, I put that in, I was thinking, I think that's what I put in for getting somebody to maybe make a presentation regarding restoring old windows that we could do as a, whether it's a recording or a webinar or whatever, so that we could have it on our website. People like videos more than actually doing the research themselves.
Yeah, look at YouTube.
Yeah, look at YouTube, right. So I didn't know if maybe reaching out to a local window restoration company or somebody from SHPO. I looked at the link from SHPO in that latest email for additional training, and I didn't see anything specific to window restoration.
So I guess, so I wonder, I think this is a great idea. I think the concern is if we reached out to a specific local contractor, it would seem like we were favoring them. So what we maybe could do is reach out to like the Preservation League, and see if they have someone who could present on it, because they're not getting paid for it essentially. Alternatively, yeah, cause SHPO doesn't really like do trainings necessarily for that. I think Preservation League might be our best bet.
Do you want me to reach out, or do you have a contact, or?
I don't,
Okay. Steve?
well, I mean, we do, but
Preservation, yeah, so Preservation League, we were on the 7 to Save, so we have a,
you reach out to Caitlin Livis. So do you wanna reach out to her?
well, I'll just email Bill. I mean, I'll email and CC Bill or the commission on it, and then we can just do that.
Okay.
I think
Some type
that's
of
the
video.
best, yeah.
Video or webinar, however they would recommend doing it.
I think, so yeah, I think a webinar would be cool, because if people can attend, then they have the opportunity to ask these questions that we don't have answers to it, because we are not experts in that.
Okay.
And I think they even did at the last preservation conference, like a whole, they actually did a tour of a shop in Rochester that literally builds and refurbishes and restores historic windows. And they had that guy do an entire presentation at the conference. So they might have a good contact with him and he could send that.
And yeah, and I mean, if it is someone out of our area, then we might be able to use them, but I would just not wanna like, contact the guy in Sydney and be like, hey, come do this, we wanna send work here.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I think that he actually did a presentation for the conference that we could then just put on our website.
Oh, true.
Okay, so you'll handle that?
Yeah,
All right,
I'll
thanks.
CC everybody.
Yep. So that's, any other new business? No? Maybe? Alright. That takes us to old business, which we've taken care of part of, and board vacancy. Did you have something, Bob?
Oh, no, I just hope that we can, get some action.
Did we ever reach out to like the preservation office for?
So I
Posting?
contacted, the Cooperstown Graduate Program, and they don't currently know of anyone who lives in the city of Oneonta, but they're still thinking about it. They're like,
Okay.
we'll keep this on our radar. Other than that, we didn't really have any leads.
Would it make sense to put something right on our section of the website? Just in, our piece of the website, saying we're looking for commissioners who live in the city, we're interested in preserving the historic fabric of Oneonta?
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't hurt, right?
No.
Because theoretically, if someone's actually gotten their way
think
to
it
that
could
piece of the
hurt.
website,
Oh.
they might
Could
be
hurt.
kind of interested.
I don't know if you realized, I think it was in the last meeting that you were absent. The list that we gave the mayor, there was nobody that lived in the city, I believe is what the results were, yeah,
Yeah.
out of that list.
It's that white flag thing. Just kidding.
Wasn't, Dwight Wooten lives in the city, right?
Who?
Wooten, wasn't he on?
Oh, Bryce.
Bryce Wood.
Oh, yeah. Bryce is on,
Oh,
Commission
Bryce,
on
yeah.
Community Relations and Human Rights at the moment.
So,
Oh, that's what he's on. Is that one of the commissions that precludes being on another?
If you're an
commission?
officer, yeah.
well, I guess, I mean, we'll keep trying, keep hunting, yeah. Any other old business? Training, we have the preservation conference, and we have a tax credit webinar scheduled, March 31st.
Yeah, so the preservation conference, registration open today.
Yep.
I'm all registered. If you are going, put in an application for the CLG scholarship and go to the CLG training. Like, I cannot tell you how helpful
Yeah,
that
you should probably do
CLG
that.
training was for me last year. You were in a room of 100 other people on this same commission throughout New York State. And you have people in this training who specialize in training commissions like us, and they answer. It was amazing. And I know that I felt way more confident doing this job after going through that training.
Is it mandatory? My challenge is that time of year at
It's your-
Parkway
yeah.
is one of our busiest
Yeah, I
times.
would guess.
It's not mandatory, it's just an opportunity.
Okay, cause like, what's the latest you can register? Cause I could look into doing it, but there is so much, like, I think Student Showcase is happening then.
It's not so it's not a massive conference. It's
Okay.
like, it's a statewide conference. I mean, you're not getting more than 300 people.
Mhm.
So I think if you were to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm not sure yet, what's the latest I
Okay.
can register? I think they'd probably be pretty
Okay.
flexible.
Thankfully, it's not board week. Board
Oh.
week is the next week.
Well, if we could go, let's do it. If not, there's always next year.
I will be there.
Yep.
And then for the webinar,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna do March 31st, with Ashley Barrett, who is, it'll be really great, I think, for us to have her for a couple of reasons. First off, she is, the, commercial tax credit, part 2 reviewer for our area. Part 1 is, you know, are you a certified historic structure? So it's the nomination aspect, which we're pretty much set with because we already have our districts and individual listings. Ashley is also the tech reviewer for SHPO. So she reviews whenever anyone puts in a project. So she would have, for example, reviewed the GOHS project. So she's familiar with Alianta.
Except that they wouldn't be going for a tax credit because they're a nonprofit.
Well, but so, any project that uses state or federal funding, licensing, or permitting has to be submitted to SHPO
got
for
it.
review.
Got it.
And so if there is a historic property identified, it's referred to the technical unit. So she asked about a time. She said that during the day would be ideal, but that we could push it to as late as 5 or 6 p.m. if we thought that that would be better for attendance. My question to the commission is, I don't know what attendance would be like on a Monday during the day. Maybe that would be better for some of these business owners because a lot of them run restaurants that may not be open until dinner. A lot of restaurants in Oneonta are actually closed on Mondays.
Right.
So maybe Monday during the day isn't a bad time. My knee-jerk reaction was, no, we have to wait for the evening, but maybe I'm wrong.
Good afternoon, I don't know.
Don, do you have any input with your constituents on Main Street, since hopefully they'll be attending?
Generally speaking, they're not fans of, Historic Preservation Commission. I don't know if they'd be interested in coming or not.
It's
Well-
about a tax credit.
Well, it's what you have to remember is a lot of the business owners don't own the buildings they're in.
Right.
So, the problem you run into is you might have someone that runs a restaurant building,
But it's not.
but
their
So I
building.
guess
they
I
don't
said,
care because it's not
I
their building.
said constituents, so I guess that wouldn't be the business owners, that would be the building owners?
Yeah.
I
And
know
I do-
more the retailers than the business owners. I only know a couple of business owners,
Building owners.
business, building owners. You know, my landlord wouldn't come.
Well, so his landlord wouldn't come because he already utilized tax credits to do his buildings. So Chip Klugo, to do the building
Yeah.
you live in,
Yeah.
took a massive tax credit and worked with SHPO to get funding to do that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, Chip Klugo is a great example of someone who has used those tax credits to do 3 buildings in downtown Oneonta.
And did great work.
So, and I'd like to stress too, that our 4 biggest projects in downtown Oneonta, the Springbrook project and all Chip's buildings, all utilize tax credits.
Yeah.
And those are the only projects that we've seen come to fruition in downtown Oneonta.
Well, hopefully, I mean, maybe you can reach out to your constituents and ask them to attend, but other than that, I guess we
I can do that.
do what we want to, as far as time.
I'll ask. I don't know what would be the best time.
So the only concern is, I think it would be great if we could get word out sooner rather than later, so I don't wanna wait too
Yeah.
long to get a time set.
I mean, we're already, what?
Yeah, I was hoping we could set a time tonight.
It's
Yeah.
3 weeks from tonight.
Yeah. I mean, so 5 and 6, we're kinda getting into dinner time.
What other times did she say she was available?
She said anytime during the day. Let me double check.
That's why I said
2 to 3
mid-afternoon,
or
because
something.
if they,
Yeah,
it
mid-afternoon
might be a
is-
break, if they
yeah.
either do have business, and they could take an hour off.
2 to 3?
Something like that.
Yep, okay, so I will ask her about 2 to 3.
Excellent.
And then the other thing that she'd asked for,
Okay.
March
March
31st.
31st.
It's on the-
I had asked, I had said that it might be helpful to do an example or a case study, and she suggested that we reach out to a property owner of a recent project and ask their permission to share their project. If they're willing, it might be nice to invite them to share as well, but if not, then she could share. But essentially, we're not, she would not be able to share details about a project without.
Would Seth Aid be a good one to do that, you think? or-
That's what I'm saying.
Do you wanna
We
talk
can
to Springbrook?
Yeah, we can just talk to Springbrook.
So will
Yeah.
you ask Springbrook
Yeah.
if they would be okay sharing
Yes.
details of their project and or
I'm
participating on the webinar?
assuming they probably would because they recently did at a thing we did soon. So
Okay.
I'll talk to Springbrook.
Let me know, so I can let Ashley know. Okay,
I mean, a lot of people, I don't think really realize how big the dollars can be as a benefit.
I
you
know.
Until they hear it from someone who's actually done it.
well, and I think that this would be a great webinar for the council and anyone involved in economic development in the city to come to, because these tax credits are a major economic driver across the state.
Yeah.
And so for them to have a full understanding or a more full understanding of how they work, so they can then share, and keep that in like their toolbox when they're looking for developers, would be
And
great.
the only thing I'll throw out there, are we sure they're gonna be available in the future, given Doge and everything else?
So, at this point, there is no official guidance on whether or not historic tax credits will continue as they are, if they will be altered, or if they will be eliminated. National Park Service has not communicated anything to anyone about that. We do know that they were named, along with the Historic Preservation Fund, as things to potentially be altered. However, that being said, National Park Service is moving forward as usual, until such time that
Okay.
we're informed otherwise. Yeah, so I will make an internet graphic to send to Carrie. I will set up a Zoom link to send to Carrie, and we can put it on our website, Facebook. And I will also make up a flyer so we can put them up, as well.
Downtown.
Yeah.
Great.
Ah, yes, perfect.
I'll help put them up.
Thank you
I'll
for
put 'em
your
up.
hard work. Any other training?
I sent sent out an email, last week, I think. The National Association of Preservation Commissions
That's
is
interesting.
doing,
Restoration, demolition.
yeah, deconstruction versus
Yeah.
demolition webinar, on the 27th of this month. It's midday, it looks really fascinating, I signed up for it. Yeah, it's just one of those cool offerings.
Also on that email that was sent out, there was additional training videos. I'm trying to find the email now, but there was a video regarding Seeker. And so I thought maybe I should watch that because I have no freaking clue what that is all about, but there it is. So yeah, in that email from Certified Local Government Programs,
Oh, yeah.
New York State, there's a link, somewhere, let's say about halfway down under bonus. If you click there, that takes you to a whole website of videos, if anybody's interested. Comprehensive planning, land use,
So-
public meeting hearings, very, very general, broad stuff.
You're talking about the CLG newsletter that
Oh,
Fran
is it?
Stern sent out today.
Yes, that's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
So everyone should have gotten that because we're all on
Yeah.
the mailing. Did everyone get that?
You even read it.
I haven't read it yet.
I
But
mean,
yeah.
I can also give you guys a training on Seeker if you want.
Maybe it's just me, I don't know. No,
Yeah,
it-
What's Fran's email address? I'll just look it up.
It is.
Is that something you'd
so it
wanna
came from
do during a regular meeting?
NY State
Yeah, we can do it
Parks.
during a meeting, cause then we're all here anyway.
NY.
If we have a meeting where we just don't have any applications or there's minimal, we can just do a fast. and-
It'd probably be smart to do it that way.
Presentation.
Can we plan for, April?
I got
.govdelivery.com.
forwarded from you, Sarah,
Okay.
in January.
That works.
You should have gotten the CLG newsletter today, though.
The last thing I got was from you.
Gov
for the
delivery.
jury. Maybe I can.
Delivery, it's not autofilling it.
.com.
Let me check.
Dara, I will
The
forward this
last
to you.
thing I got was January 14 too.
Okay.
I did reach out to Fran and gave her all the,
Updated.
did you get one, Don?
What are you talking about?
We're talking about an email from the CLG,
31 today.
Newsletter?
newsletter, thank you.
No,
The
last
last
thing
thing
I
I
got
got
was
was
January.
January.
Didn't it come today?
I just forwarded it to you,
you did?
and I forwarded it to you.
Okay, I didn't
Okay.
see it.
Check your spam,
I'll look.
maybe,
Yeah,
yeah,
it could go to spam.
because I did give her everybody's email.
Was that the city email?
Yes, to your Oneana email address.
I'll look again.
Sarah, what day did you send out deconstruction versus demolition?
I sent that one out someday last week. I might have sent it to your wrong email address.
No, I don't have anything in spam
remember
for it
seeing it.
either.
So
Nope.
I sent that March 6th.
Okay, thank you, I'll check. If not, I'll get in touch with
It's not in spam.
She maybe didn't have time to update
Yeah.
the mailing list,
Yeah.
but I just forwarded it to both.
I got it, thanks.
Okay. Can we move on to open discussion? Any open discussion?
I got a couple of things. One is, I think I noticed from the minutes of one of the meetings or discussion about the possibility of having a nonprofit tax credit thing, that there wasn't anybody to do it. But if it was going to be a webinar, we could probably find a lawyer or somebody to do that. And I think given the number of nonprofits in the city and the state that the city seems to be in, it would be,
Are there-
helpful.
Tax credits for
So
nonprofits?
you can syndicate
No,
tax.
That's what I was
Oh,
gonna
yes,
say, you can sell.
that's right.
So,
Yeah.
so what I would maybe think about, and I can talk to, we actually have a preservation architect that we keep on a retainer for the city, like a small retainer, for projects like that, and we could see if they would just be willing to do, cause I know that they've done the syndication process before. So we could reach out to them and say, hey, would you mind just doing a,
Is this Johnson Schmidt?
yep, it's Elise.
That would be great.
That's a great idea, Bob.
And I mean, she always, like, she's pretty happy to, like, help us out, so I mean, wanna do that, we can always ask her if she would do it.
Plan B, we could reach out if Elise can't. You can always reach out to NICON, the New York Council of Nonprofits, because they might have someone that they could recommend. So
It might.
that would be our Plan B.
Plan B,
It
okay,
was just a thought,
Yeah.
we have an in-house person.
so Plan A, then, the in-house.
Yeah, I'll talk to Elise and see.
All right, so that's something else you'll handle?
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
Are you taking all the notes?
The second thing I would like to mention is this ongoing project of the contact list. I wonder if the contact list should also include when a person started their term, because we're having a hard time getting 7 people, and we might find that somebody's going to, you know,
Oh, yeah.
be.
3-year term.
Extend, you know, not have their term extended or wherever, and we all should know where everybody else is at. So I think it would be important to keep track of that somehow. And I don't know when it starts really. Did it start before we were approved, or does it start once we're approved? Our terms.
I think it starts when we're appointed.
And
We
we
signed
first
the big
appointed.
Yeah, even before we were certified.
When we signed the contract, yeah.
So the majority of us probably have at least 2 years on now.
I can tell you one up my list now,
Because I think it's what,
we track.
it was like April 22?
April 18th of 2023 for everybody except for Cheryl Lynn, who was December 17th of 2024.
So next year, you're on your own term.
Yeah.
No, you have till 2026.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
And-
Yeah.
So
And is
the
it,
rest of us, if we were 22, it's a 3-year term?
It is a 3-year term.
Oh my
And
God,
how
so
does
it's up
that-
this year?
26, so we're
Oh.
April 18th of 2023 was your official
Oh.
appointment.
does the mayor then send the names on for a second term?
So what will happen is a couple of
If
months
he wants to.
prior, someone will reach out to you and say, hey, your term has expired, are you interested in continuing to serve? If you are, we put your name forward to finance, and then it goes forward to council, and then if you're not, we start the process of trying to find someone to.
The multi-year process?
Yeah,
It never ends.
yeah, it's difficult.
Thanks for that, Bob. Any other open discussion? Steve? Is now a good time to discuss the armory, or
Sure.
do you have something official?
So what's going on with the armory? We own the armory. It is locally landmarked. It is under the ordinance. The landmark had a very, the armory had a very, poorly constructed eyesore of a deck on the front. The city leases that armory space to a couple users. One of those users deals with disabled veterans. The ramp to the armory basically experienced what we can only call as like a catastrophic failure.
Hopefully now, with any users.
After we went and looked at it, we determined that it should probably be removed, and at that point, the user of the armory was like, we're required to have ADA, like an accessible ramp. Unfortunately, we did not have time to come in front of the commission to get approval for that ramp, because we needed to put something there for the people to get in and out of. The city is constructing a ramp that is intended to be temporary. It is not a long-term permanent solution. It's going to come here, and you guys are gonna review it, and I'm going to bring with you a set of prints we have from Elise, our preservation architect, of a proposed ramp and long-term exterior, kind of like what we see happening in front of the armory.
Will a lift be looked at as an alternative? Will a lift be looked at as an alternative?
Yep, so the intent is to put an elevator in there. There's all kinds of stuff in those plans for that building. Right now, we basically were like, we have to just have some sort of ramp because this veterans
Yeah.
group is required to have.
Are they in there now?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
What rooms are they using?
it's the main floor, because we don't have an elevator inside the building right now. So basically, that's what prompted that. We kind of hit a spot where the ramp had a catastrophic failure. We just had to get something there so they can get in and out of the building. What's being installed is not considered a permanent, solution for that. And we have a set of prints and elevations that I'll bring in. And I'll prepare that application. And I'll scream to you about it.
what guarantees do we have that they will follow through with not making this a permanent structure?
You guys can say it cannot be a permanent structure. I mean, the intent is this, I mean, we discussed this in an internal staff meeting, like, the intent is that this is not a permanent ramp. This is
I fully understand that, but so, say the veterans organization takes over or whatever might happen.
Right.
Why do they have to follow the architect's plans?
So currently, we don't, the Armory is a building that we are theoretically potentially going to sell. I mean, it's in a limbo, kind of. Anyone that would purchase that building, if they were to utilize tax credits, that rate would not be, eligible. It would kind of be one of those things you're supposed to remove. And again, like, we're not pitching this as a permanent fix. We could talk to the city administrator, I mean, we could try to go down that route. I don't know if we're gonna go out there with a chainsaw and cut it off. You could include it in that this is a temporary approval, not to exceed 5 years. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can fashion that. But like I said, I'll bring in an application with all the materials that we have.
Okay.
This was basically a quick fix for a problem that we had.
So what are the chances that the state will allow the city to sell this property?
It would take an act of the state legislature
Yeah.
To prevent it or to?
to sell it. We purchased it for $1, and we have basically it's a requirement that it be used for public recreation facilities, as part of the deal, part of the sale. And that's what would prevent us from just selling it to any random person, unless the state legislature were to give us some relief from that, or the person purchasing the building would agree to that same, situation.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Looking forward to it.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
All in favor?